If anyone would like to provide public comment during an item, please fill out a comment card located before you come inside the room. Thank you. Just make sure you turn on your microphones when you speak, please. Thank you.
I call this July 9th Planning Commission meeting to order. Thank you for joining us tonight. We have 3 items to consider. The first one, MP-26-08, 5905 Wynwood Parkway Restaurant, has been deferred by the applicant and will not be considered tonight. So if you're here for that item, we are not going to be listening to it today. But before we go to the public hearing portion, the first item, Wynwood Parkway Restaurant, has been deferred. Deferred. It's not going to be heard tonight. It will
Right
come.
now, it's listed on the 9/3 Planning Commission agenda.
September 3rd. All right, we are going to consider the minutes for the June 4th, 2026 meeting. What's the desire of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the June 4, 2026 meeting.
Motion has been made and properly seconded. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carries. Ella, would you please read the public hearing procedure?
An individual requesting to be heard on a matter related to the purpose of the hearing must be recognized by the chair before addressing the commission. Upon rising to speak, the speaker must identify himself or herself and furnish a home or business address before proceeding with any comments or remarks. The commission will allow the proponents a total of 10 minutes to speak in support of an application. Opponents will also be allowed 10 minutes to speak in opposition. Comments are accepted first from the applicant, followed by persons speaking in favor, and then from those in opposition. Upon conclusion of any opposing comments or presentations, the chair will allow the applicant to offer rebuttal if any time is remaining in the allotted 10 minutes. Thank you. And the chair has the discretion to give additional time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. First item on the agenda is MP-26-09/CU-26-08, V2613 Life Fitness / Delta Credit Union Master Plan, and Michael will be presenting.
Thank you, Chairman and Commissioners. The first item before you this evening is a request for master plan amendment, conditional use, and variance to allow for the construction of a two-story, 55,000 square foot building for One Life Fitness. That's on a 6.25 acre property located in the North Point overlay. Master plan amendment is requested to the Delta Community Credit Union Master Plan to add athletic facility as a conditional use. And a conditional use is requested to allow One Life Fitness to operate an athletic facility on the property. Variances are requested to allow parking between the building and the street, to increase the maximum building setback from Haynesbridge Road and Rock Mill Road, and to allow the impervious area of surface parking stalls to exceed the impervious area of the building. I have the location map on the overhead. This property is located at 0 North Fulton Expressway. It's the northeast corner of Haynesbridge Road and Rock Mill Road at the on-ramp to Georgia 400. As you can see on this aerial, this property is undeveloped. It's a wooded property. It is zoned O&I, office institutional, and as I mentioned, it is subject to the Delta Community Credit Union Master Plan. Surrounding properties are Georgia 400 to the north. The Fulton County Schools North Maintenance Shop is located to the east. North Point Common Shopping Center, which includes Best Buy, is located to the south. And the Atlanta Center for Dental Health is located to the west. The comprehensive land use plan designation of the property is corporate office, which does support the applicant's proposal. As you may recall, a master plan amendment was approved on this property in 2023. That amendment allowed for an indoor and outdoor pickleball facility for pickle and social, as well as a freestanding restaurant. The applicant has decided not to go forward with that concept on the property. The applicant is here and can provide comments in that regard. But the proposal has changed to a One Life Fitness on the property. To mention, there are some variances to the Unified Development Code. As I mentioned, the maximum building setbacks on Haynesbridge Road and Rock Mill Road. In the North Point overlay, we have minimum and maximum setbacks. The maximum setback on Haynesbridge Road. Chairman, did you need to fix a technical issue before I continue? Okay. All right.
Sorry about that.
All right. You ready for me to continue?
Now you can
All right.
continue.
Okay.
Thank you.
As I was mentioning, one of the variances that's being requested is to the maximum building setback on Haynesbridge and Rock Mill. In the North Point overlay, we require a maximum setback from Haynesbridge of 100 feet, and 10 feet on Rock Mill Road. The applicant's site plan is showing 315-foot setback of the building from Haynesbridge Road and a 68-foot setback from Rock Mill Road. The overlay also requires that surface parking lots be situated beside or behind the building along Rock Mill Road, and the site plan does depict one row of parking between the building and Rock Mill Road. Overlay also, we wanted to limit parking in the North Point overlay, and we were looking to redevelop all the surface parking lots. So we do have a requirement that the impervious area of parking stalls do not exceed the building footprint. And their parking stalls do exceed the impervious area of just the parking stalls is almost 45,000 square feet, and the building footprint is just over, a little over 35,000 square feet. A little bit about One Life Fitness. They have a location here in the city of Alpharetta. They are an athletic club providing world-class gym equipment, sports courts, specialized training programs, classes, and amenities such as pools, saunas, whirlpools, hydro massage, on-site childcare, and locker room facilities. There's several locations, including the location in Alpharetta at 12315 Crabapple Road. Other locations in nearby are in Cumming, Woodstock, Dunwoody, Lawrenceville, Holly Springs, and there's a new location coming to Canton. Hours of operation are Monday through Sunday, 5 a.m. to 11 p.m., and the business anticipates approximately 75 to 100 employees. I'll take you to the site plan. So this is the applicant's site plan. If you recall from the previous proposal for Pickle and Social, there was, well, let me orient you first. This is Georgia 400 on-ramp, this is Haynes Bridge, and then Rock Mill. So the previous plan on this property, there was a small footprint for a freestanding restaurant closest to Haynes Bridge. And then behind that, in this same general area, was an indoor and outdoor pickleball facility, which also included a restaurant. So this is, the site plan is similar layout without the building, the freestanding restaurant building up against Haynes Bridge Road. On this site plan, you're looking at a two-story building, again, 55,000 square feet. The first floor is 35,500 square feet. The second floor, 19,500 square feet. Of course, surrounded by surface parking lot. As I mentioned, the variance along Rock Mill Road, there is one row of parking between the building and Rock Mill Road. There's also, with the building, there's outdoor space. So behind the building, there's an outdoor amenity space here. It's about 15,000 square feet, and it does include 4 pickleball courts as well as an open area. Access to the property is only from Rock Mill. There's no access from Haynes Bridge, and of course not from George 400 on-ramp. The outdoor amenity, I mentioned the setbacks of the building from Haynes Bridge and Rock Mill. The outdoor amenity is about 81 feet to the east property line. That property line adjoins the Fulton County Schools maintenance yard. The Unified Development Code parking regulations require 220 parking spaces for the applicant's use, which includes the required 20% parking reduction. And the applicant is showing a total of 276 parking spaces on this site plan. So they do exceed the minimum parking requirements by about 56 parking spaces. In this particular case, while we typically like to limit the parking in North Point, we do know that these health clubs are a high traffic generator, high parking needs. So we are supporting that request regarding the parking stall and impervious areas exceeding the building footprint. The overlay also has minimum requirements for open space. There's a minimum of 5% amenity space and 10% civic space, or a total of 0.94 acres of open space. The applicant's site plan is showing 1.15 acres or 18.5% open space. The civic space is what you see here in the green area. So this is a gathering area as well as a tree save area and a walking path through the Georgia 400 buffer. And then the other way they're meeting their open space is this outdoor amenity space here behind the building. The property is currently undeveloped. It is a wooded property, and there are a mix of hardwoods and pines on the property. The tree save area is the same as the tree save area was on the Pickle and Social proposal on this property. So they are maintaining the same tree save area along Haynesbridge Road, and there are a number of specimen trees, I believe a total of 7 in that tree save area. There is an existing stormwater pond here in the north end of the site that will remain, and they are proposing an underground system underneath the parking lot in this general area here. Here are some renderings that the applicant provided of the building. So you can see up on the second floor, there's an open air, it looks like a covered but open air area here. Back to the site plan here. And the North Point overlay also has a requirement for eco-district measures. The applicant is proposing the same eco-district measures as they did with the Pickle and Social request, and so they're meeting a minimum of 7 eco-district points. They intend to provide employee shower facilities, bicycle repair center, rideshare pickup and drop-off zones, a van pool parking space, and additional landscape civic space. And of course, we considered the review criteria for master plan amendment, conditional use, and variance. The proposal is consistent with the development of adjacent and nearby properties, which are similarly developed with retail uses. Property is located in the North Point overlay, which seeks to create a live, work, play district featuring a balanced mix of uses. The proposal is also similar to the previous approval on the property, and would not have significant impacts on public facilities and services. It's consistent with the vision of the North Point area and would bring services closer to where people live, work, and play. As it relates to the variance, the property has exceptional and peculiar conditions related to its unusual shape and road frontage on 3 sides. The front entrance of the building is positioned on the long side. It's here, so it's on the long side of the building. So to be able to pull the building up closer to Haynesbridge to meet that maximum 100-foot setback, the shape of the property does not really allow for that. Also, as it relates to the parking between the building and Rockmill Road, as well as the minimum setback on Rockmill Road, this entrance to the property is purposely positioned at the midpoint of this property because they positioned it between this intersection and then the adjacent driveway. So they're kind of limited where they can access this property. So that is the reasons why we are in support of those variances. And as I mentioned, we have observed high demand parking needs at other athletic facilities, health clubs, so we are supporting that variance as well. The applicant provided a citizen participation plan. The report stated that no public comments were received. However, staff did receive 1 email from a nearby property owner in the office condos to the east of this site, and just with some concerns over traffic on Rockmill Road. And then this request was shown to the public at the June 10th Community Zoning Information Meeting. There were no public comments on the sign-in sheet. With that, staff is recommending approval of the applicant's request subject to 16 conditions, and I'll go through those conditions. Condition 1 is the site plan specific condition tying it to this site plan by Paradigm dated 6/18/26. 2, athletic facility shall be added as a conditional use in the Delta Community Credit Union Master Plan. 3, athletic facility shall be limited to One Life Fitness. No other athletic facility or subleasing shall be permitted. 4 is the architecture condition tying the architecture materials to the submitted renderings, except for modifications to comply with this condition. We are asked, and it would be subject to final approval by Design Review Board. Condition 4 goes on to say that the building shall have four-sided architecture, materials, and details, and shall be consistent with the North Point overlay building design regulations, as well as the North Point overlay district design guidelines. So really what those, really it's the design guidelines that may require some changes to some of the materials on the elevation, the renderings that I showed you, but it wouldn't necessarily require a wholesale redesign of the building. Maybe some of the materials may need to change. Condition 5 would approve the parking between Rockmill Road and the building, so approving that variance and tying it to the site plan. Condition 6 addresses or requires that the outdoor amenity space behind the building be screened from Rockmill Road with screen walls, fencing, and/or landscaping with final approval by DRB. Condition 7 is the open space. And more specifically, in condition 8 is the civic space, so that's the space with the tree save area along Haynesbridge Road, and the required improvements in that area, which would also include a North Point Eco District monument or district threshold. Those are a part of the North Point creative placemaking plan. It states that if any unique eco-district monuments are utilized at the site, that approval by the Cultural Arts Commission would be required. Condition 9 ties the applicant to the eco-district points that they've identified in their letter by Paradigm dated 6/15/26. Condition 10 requires green stormwater design techniques be utilized on the site to address runoff reduction. Condition 11 is the Haynesbridge Road streetscape requirements, requiring a 6-foot planter and 8-foot sidewalk. Condition 12 are the Rockmill Road streetscape requirements, requiring a 6-foot planter and a 6-foot sidewalk. 13 requires that the developer provide an enhanced pedestrian crossing between Rockmill Road at Haynesbridge Road and at the entrance to the Fulton County Schools Maintenance Facility, which shall include the North Point Eco District leaf pattern pavement markings. Enhanced crossing shall be eligible for impact fee credits as approved by staff. So that would just be implementing recommendations from the North Point Creative Placemaking Plan. Condition 14 is the tree save condition, tying it to the site plan showing tree saves. Condition 15 requires that retaining walls visible from the street be faced with brick or stone with final approval by DRB, and that it also requires taller retaining walls over 16 feet be terraced with landscape areas in between. And then condition 16, developer shall be responsible to implement the recommendations in the traffic study as approved by staff. And that concludes the report. If you have questions, I'm happy to try to answer those.
Thank you, Michael, for the presentation. With respect to condition 16, have you received and reviewed the traffic plan yet?
So we did receive the traffic study the day the staff report was due, so that's why a summary was not included in the staff report. But George has had a chance to review the traffic study since. And George, I don't know if you have any comments based on your review of the traffic study for the commission.
We would like to hear it, the summary of it, if you have it.
Sure. Yeah, the traffic study was submitted, as Michael had stated, the day the packet was due. Between then and now, we had reviewed it, and the traffic impact study had identified some recommendations that necessarily are not reflective of what's out there on site. They had evaluated an intersection as unsignalized, even though it is signalized, with recommendations associated with it. And what we've identified in that recommendation is it's not necessarily necessary, because what they're recommending is what's out there on site. And the site access configurations that they recommend are very sound. And we're agreeable to those recommendations, which is effectively what you see in the proposed site plan layout.
Okay. Any other questions for Michael?
Well, on that same, sorry, George, on that same, it's on page, their conclusions and recommendations are on page 40 of the application. And 10 and 18 talked about the westbound right turn on Rock Mill Road and a second turn lane possibility with the protection of a signal
Correct.
merits consideration. So you're not suggesting that we need that?
Correct, because right now it is actually a signalized interchange that's coordinated with the northbound on-off signalized intersection, which operates fine.
Okay, and I guess 18 would be the westbound turn movement from Rock Mill Road at Haynesbridge will continue to fail in the future with the failure extending to the AM peak as well. The addition of a second westbound turn lane would provide additional capability of queue and storage. So we're not suggesting that?
No,
Okay.
because that recommendation is reflective of unsignalized stop control configurations, which does not exist on site. It's signalized. It has traffic signal control, which has different operations than stop control.
Okay, well, it's just kind of odd that they didn't see a signal, but, okay, thank you.
Michael, I had a question on number 14. It says trees shall be preserved, but shall be thinned out, cleaned up, replanted with native or drought-tolerant landscaping, not additional trees. How much of the trees are planning to be cut? Is thinned out is kind of vague. Isn't the sort of the point of having the green space to keep a higher percentage of trees there?
What our city arborist was referencing there is just to remove the scrub material that is growing underneath the existing specimen trees that would be saved. So he's just talking about cleaning up the area under the trees to be saved. It's not necessarily to remove. There may be smaller trees like saplings that are growing within the critical root zone of the existing trees that will be saved that possibly would be removed. That when that area is kind of cleaned up, because it's going to serve as a gathering area as well. So that's what is intended in that condition. Yeah.
Any other questions? Hearing none, we're going to ask the applicant to come forward and make a presentation.
My name is Neil Freeman.
Excuse me, sorry, Neil, if you can press that.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you. Neil Freeman, reside at 959 Middle Fork Trail, Suwanee, Georgia. I am the managing member of Pickle and Social Alpharetta LLC, the owner of the property. I'm joined by Barry Dunlop of Paradigm Engineers, the project engineer for the property. We accept all the conditions set forth by the city staff, and again, congratulations on very thorough, as they always are. Well done. I'd like to address the three variances, but Michael's done a great job already, but I'll just go ahead and touch on the first one about the allowing parking between the building and Rock Mill. That was really a fire circulation primarily for that. Second one, as he mentioned, the site's somewhat of a trapezoid, so for site orientation, that caused some of the reason for being that far away from Haynesbridge on the building. And then the third, we actually, in our head, we had considered the amenity as the amenity section of 15. If you had that 15,000 square feet to the 35, then there'd be no need for a variance. But if you just take the building, then we were short on that impervious, so that's why we tripped it by a few thousand, maybe 10,000 square feet if you didn't include that. So those are the explanations for those three. Commission Member Reynolds, we are going to make those improvements, the Rock Mill that's in the report. And so I don't know why they addressed the signalization, but George, we agree with George's assessment on that. Mr. Dole, excuse me. And then, Mr. Perkins, we one of the highlights of that site are those incredible 30, 40, 50-inch calibers right there, trees on Haynes Bridge. So some of that trimming is just really to also help the health and really highlight those trees. I think those are a special part of that intersection. So that's always been a part of that save, and tree save's always been a part. So I'll leave the rest for any questions the rest of the time.
Yeah, that was very good. 2 minutes.
Okay.
Any questions for the applicant?
Well, this is just a comment, not really a question, but we're sad that you're not building the other one. But we certainly understand the economic reasons behind it. So can you give us a little bit more about what you're thinking here on this particular?
Yeah, so this was going to be Pickle and Social number 2, new and improved. We had learned from number 1, already had it 90% design. Think just life is timing, the way the cooler, and then coming in, and then the industry having such a proliferation of courts all around. It just, the business model was a little strained, and fitness is still growing like crazy. There was a pocket there. We think it works well with what could be happening across the street. So it was just a pivot. We're a little sad as well.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. We are going to ask if there is anybody in the audience who would like to support this application. I'm opening this for public comments. I'm opening it for public comments. And whether anyone in the audience in support of the application, you can come forward. Seeing none, anyone in opposition? All right, I'm going to close the public comments. Do you have anything else you'd like to add before I turn it over to the board? All right, thank you. All right, it's up to the board for a motion and our discussion.
I'll make a motion to approve MP-26-09/CU-26-08/V-26-13 One Life Fitness Delta Credit Union.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussions? Hearing none, or in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carries. It goes before council on July the 20th, which is Monday week. And thank you. This is a good gym. One Life does a very good job. You're familiar with the other facility. Hopefully, you get a lot of people coming there. Thank you so much. The next item on the agenda is CU-26-07, St. Thomas Aquinas Catholic Church, Columbarium. Did I say that correctly? Oh, close enough. Columbarium. Okay, I will not say it again.
Thank you again, Chairman and Commissioners. The next item before you is a request from St. Thomas Aquinas Catholic Church. They're requesting a conditional use to allow for the construction of a 2,300 square foot columbarium on a 48-acre property. The conditional use is requested to allow cemetery for the proposed columbarium. Let me get you the location map. All right, this is the location map. This property is located at 535 Rucker Road. It's on the south side of Rucker Road across from Fern Creek Registry. The property is zoned AG Agriculture and CUP Community Unit Plan. It's developed as a church for St. Thomas Aquinas Catholic Church. And the property also includes accessory uses customary to a church use, such as an academic school. Property was annexed into the city from unincorporated Fulton County in 2005. Surrounding properties are zoned CUP and R15 to the east and R15 and AG to the north. The city of Roswell is located to the west and south of this property. The Welford Trace and Wallace Woods neighborhoods are located to the east, and Fern Creek Registry is located to the north. The comprehensive land use plan designation of the property is public institutional educational, which does support the applicant's request. St. Thomas Aquinas Church has been operating on the property since 1972. The request again is to allow for a columbarium, which is similar to a mausoleum where human cremains are housed in small compartment or niches in a permanent vertical structure. The proposed columbarium is classified in the city's code as a cemetery, which the city's Unified Development Code defines as land used or dedicated to the burial or internment of human or animal remains, including crematoriums, mausoleums, necessary sales and maintenance facilities. The Unified Development Code allows a cemetery as a conditional use in the AG and SU special use zoning districts. According to the application, the columbarium will only be accessible during daylight hours, so approximately 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. So we've got some street view pictures of the site. So this is a view at the project's entrance off of Rucker Road. You see the most visible building, the first building closest to Rucker Road is here. The columbarium is proposed just on the west side of the building. So I have some more pictures entering the site. This is that same building. And this is the same building here, and this is the west side of that building. So this area right here is where the columbarium is proposed. It is closest to the west property line of this 48-acre property. This is the area here. Again, this is looking south. This is the area for the columbarium. Over to the right would be subdivisions in the city of Roswell. There's a pretty significant buffer between this road and the adjacent properties. There's about 81 feet from the edge of the columbarium to the west property line. And then this is that buffered area here. These are the subdivision in the city of Roswell. And I just took some pictures here because we do have a condition that this area be filled in where there's some spaces that do not have trees, so like in these areas here. All right, this is the overall site plan. Again, this is Rucker Road here at the north end of the site, and this is the northernmost building here, so the columbarium is proposed right here. And then we have a zoomed in of that area on this site plan. So again, this is on the west side of the existing northernmost building. The dimensions of the columbarium are approximately 62 by 48. It would be a walled memorial garden, and the gardens would contain a statue, fountain, benches, and landscaping and hardscaping. The structure is gated on two sides, and the site plan depicts sidewalk connections providing access to those gates. There are no specimen trees that would be impacted with the construction of the columbarium. And I will just briefly show you the renderings that the applicant provided. I believe they may have a presentation, and we'll show you these as well. So these are just renderings. This is a rendering inside the columbarium, and this is a bird's eye view. Of course, we looked at the review criteria for a conditional use. The proposal would not have significant impacts on surrounding properties. The columbarium is very small and will function as an accessory use on the property that has existed as a church since 1972. Also, we found examples of columbariums in conjunction with a church in nearby jurisdictions, including at St. Bridget Catholic Church and St. Benedict Catholic Church in Johns Creek. The applicant provided a citizen participation plan indicating that they did receive some public feedback with questions and comments regarding impacts to a stream, whether the use would include traditional cemetery with full body burials, noise, traffic, impacts to Rucker Road, and a comment that the proposal represented a beautiful design. This was shown to the public at the June 10th Community Zoning Information Meeting. There were public comments in support and in opposition. Those in opposition had concerns over noise, traffic, did not want human burials, and overall growth of activity on Rucker Road. We had a lot of feedback, well, not a lot of feedback, but the feedback that we had received from those that had concerns thought that this was an actual cemetery and that it was utilizing a much larger area on the site. It is not a cemetery in the sense of humans being buried in the ground. It is limited to just this 2,300 square foot columbarium. And so staff is recommending approval of the applicant's request subject to 3 conditions. Condition 1, cemetery shall be added as a permitted use at 535 Rucker Road and limited to the submitted site plan prepared by Smith Boland Architects. So that site plan that shows this 2,300 square foot columbarium, it would be limited to this site plan. So they would not be able to expand that area without coming back in, if they are approved, without coming back in for a change of conditions. Condition 2, cemetery use shall be limited to a columbarium with the size, location, wall height, and design substantially as depicted on the submitted site plan prepared by Smith Boland Architects and submitted renderings with final approval by staff. 3, applicant shall install evergreens along the western property line at the fence line where gaps exist in the area adjacent to the proposed columbarium as approved by staff. And that concludes the presentation. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Thank you, Michael, for your presentation. Is this the first one in the city of Alpharetta? Do we have another one?
So I looked around for other examples. I could not find another church property with a mausoleum or a columbarium in the city of Alpharetta. I may have missed it in the research, but we did certainly dig around looking for that condition. I didn't find an example of a case, a public hearing case for a conditional use in our records. But I did find the 2 examples in the city of Johns Creek at the 2 churches that I mentioned.
I'm going to ask the audience to refrain from talking. I'm struggling. I don't know where the commissioners are when I hear sounds. So please, if you don't mind. So the only 2 you found is in the city of Roswell. Did you say?
Yeah, the 2 examples I found were in the city of Johns Creek.
Johns
I
Creek,
didn't
okay.
find examples in Alpharetta,
That-
but
I missed
admittedly,
that.
we could have missed them.
All right. Thank you. Any other questions?
I have a question on, and forgive me if I've missed this, but I know the proposed size is 62 feet by 48 feet, correct? Well, what is
Yes.
the wall height?
The wall height, I'm not sure I have. I believe we spoke to the applicant about it, but I don't recall it exactly what that would be, Commissioner Reynolds, but the applicant is here and should be able to answer that question.
Okay, because the wall height isn't on this, would that need to be put on here as a condition?
We could certainly add that in. I think we were referencing the renderings based on what they were typically showing there, but yes, they don't have an exact number on the renderings. We could
Okay.
certainly add that to the condition.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
I've got a quick question. Will something this size require stormwater review?
So it would only trigger stormwater requirements, full stormwater requirements, if it's 5,000 square feet or more of impervious area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? All right, no questions, further questions at this time. I'll ask the applicant to come forward and make a presentation.
Good evening.
Good
Here
evening.
we go. All right, so I put together, so my name's Mike Boland. I'm 148 Holland Street, Marietta, Georgia. 30064 is where I reside. I'm the managing partner for Smith Boland Architects. We're the architecture firm working with St. Thomas Aquinas Catholic Church, as well as the Archdiocese of Atlanta. Technically, I think the applicant is the Archdiocese of Atlanta, is the landowner. St. Thomas Aquinas is actually the user of the property. And so I put together a quick PowerPoint that just sort of runs through the concept of and sort of explains what a columbarium is for those that don't know. So again, columbarium is a structure for the reverential, usually public storage of funerary urns holding cremated remains of the dead. So again, no full body burial, it's only cremated ashes. So here is an example of an urn in a niche. So the niches are basically a nice way of saying a locker that holds cremated remains in an urn. Those are usually placed in a wall. A lot of times they're basically memorial gardens, outdoor spaces. The architecture usually reflects the architecture of the surrounding buildings. So I put examples of 2 different columbarium gardens, and you can see they use similar materials, brick or stone. The niches themselves usually are granite face plates that cover those niches. They're not meant to be opened, and the urns are not taken out and taken home. Once they're placed in there, they're locked in place, never to be opened again unless you are going to intern another urn in that same opening. So it's not a checkout system where people can take their loved one home for an afternoon and then bring them back and put them back in. So you might already know all this, but I just figured I'd cover it. So here we are. Here is the site aerial view of the campus. So again, just walking you through where the proposed location of the columbarium will be located on the campus. So it's on the western side of the campus, or the northern side of the campus. So here is a sort of a blown up aerial view. You can see sort of the property line, the existing church, the existing parish center, and the surrounding parking lot. And then the location for the actual columbarium itself is tucked in between the church and the existing entrance drive that brings you into the campus. So we are roughly 82 feet from the nearest property line from the columbarium, and then from the columbarium to Rucker Road, roughly 254 feet back. And so similar to what Michael did, here's a view from Rucker Road of what you see when you pass by the campus now. That building in the front is the back of the church, is what faces Rucker Road. And if you look very closely, you can see the image of the columbarium tucked in next to the church. So the impact, the visual impact of this columbarium from the public right-of-way is almost imperceptible. And the design of it is such that it blends in perfectly with the architecture of the existing church. And again, Michael showed this image already. This is an aerial view if you were above the entrance drive coming into the campus, with the columbarium garden tucked in right up against the existing church. We're planning on using the same materials that, that the church, and actually most of the buildings on the campus are a fieldstone, rubble fieldstone walls. So we're going to match that. And then again, an interior view, question about the heights of the walls. roughly 8 feet tall. And from the, if I go back to the aerial view, the topography drops roughly maybe 3 feet from curb line down to the sidewalk next to the church. So the wall height, in terms of how it appears when you're driving past the columbarium, is roughly 4.5 to 5 feet tall because it's bermed down into the ground. If that makes sense, the way I'm describing that. And the only other image I have, there were some questions about neighboring columbariums just in Metro Atlanta. A few of these are all Catholic columbariums. One in Cumming, Georgia, in the upper right corner, would it be at St. Brendan the Navigator Catholic Church. We designed that, and it was constructed roughly 5 years ago. All Saints Catholic Church in Dunwoody has a columbarium. St. Bridget Catholic Church in Johns Creek has a columbarium. And then St. Benedict Catholic Church in Duluth also has a columbarium. This might be the first in the city of Alpharetta for a Catholic church, but we are, as architects, actively working on 6 columbarium designs for different Catholic churches in the Archdiocese of Atlanta right now. So Atlanta Archdiocese does not have a Catholic cemetery. They have some reserved space in a local cemetery, but they don't have a dedicated Catholic cemetery. And so the columbariums become rather important for the parishes to be able to provide sacred earth for people to be interned in. So, and I'll stop there. I don't think I have anything else to add, so any questions I can answer?
That was very nicely done, your presentation. Great graphics. Any questions for the applicant?
I have one. Thank you for answering the wall height.
Sure.
I know this is meant to be a peaceful place for a family to come pray and be with their loved ones and reflect. But are there services inside the area as well? It's just a reflection.
It's we purposely placed it next to the church so the funeral masses would be held inside the church. The only service would be for, I guess, when they bring the urn out and some family members come out to actually place it into the wall and maybe the saying of a prayer. But there would not be any funeral masses in the columbarium. It's such a small space. It's meant to be a reflection, sort of memorial space.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, we have no other questions at this time. I'm going to open this up for public comments. Anyone in favor, please come forward. Seeing none, anyone in opposition to this application, please come forward. Please come forward. Did you have people to sign up to speak?
I asked that you fill out a comment card, but you can come forward. Just state your name and address, please.
Okay. No one in opposition? Okay, I see somebody.
One at a time, please.
He's my husband. I didn't know if he was allowed to come. Good evening. My name is Sarah Bullard. I live at 225 Welford Trace, that immediately adjacent to the applicant's.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Yes, ma'am. I'm at 225 Welford Trace, immediately adjacent to the applicant's property. And we have always had a great relationship with St. Thomas Aquinas. We respect their presence in our community, and we are just looking to make sure that the mitigation conditions be integrated in this. I know he said 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., like daylight hours, but those are only daylight hours for half the year. And the other half of the year, it stays darker, longer and gets lighter. So we were really wanting to make sure that any necessary lighting be limited to a dawn to dusk appropriate for that time of the year, and then restrict access after those hours. So it presents a problem for all the neighbors that live there, that there could be people entering property right next to my yard, after hours, just feels insecure. To protect our dark sky character of our neighborhood, we were really wanting no overhead floodlighting within the surrounding columbarium courtyard, just necessary pathway lighting limited to low voltage, ground level, that automatically would extinguish at dusk or at night. And then to your point about the height of the walls, we were concerned about the amount of sound bouncing off of the walls if there were to be anything like that. So we wanted to make sure there were no outdoor amplified sound, microphones, external speakers that would be within or adjacent to the footprint. And the rendering is beautiful, but of course a rendering is not a contract, it's just a rendering. So then we also wanted to make sure that it would be legally restricted to the exact footprint attached to the site plan to prevent any further expansion upon that in the property lines, just so that we have undisturbed buffer between us, a year-round green buffer between all of the homes and that property. We were afraid that if it was one thing, it would lead to another, and then eventually be right up against our properties. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you for your comment. And we'll have the applicant to come later to rebut any comments that are made. Please come forward.
Mine is not a proposition. I meant to get up before her. Sorry. My name is Dulce Garcia from 900 Bridgepoint Court, Alpharetta, Georgia. And I have been going to St. Thomas Aquinas since we moved here in 1998. It was the second Catholic church we visited after we moved, and it was home from the minute we got there. It's a very welcoming community. And the columbarium is important to me because I already have the ashes for my husband, and I want to be one of the first ones to put him there because it's been our home since we got here in '98, and I want him to lay there. When you go to the columbariums, it's just to visit your loved ones. There's no noise or things of that nature. There's no big lighting and music or anything like that. It's just an area to come and visit and pray to your loved ones. So just keep that in mind.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your comments. Anyone in opposition? Anyone else in opposition? Please come. She covered what? Perfect. Okay, that's good. She spoke for all of you. We
represent Welford Trace neighborhood right there. We're all neighbors there.
Excellent. Thank you. Ask the applicant if you can come and comment on those issues that were just raised.
Sure. And sorry, I didn't write down everything, but I think I remember the comments that were made. So there will be no amplification of sound or microphones used in the columbarium. Again, it will be as quiet there once it's built as it is now. In terms of lighting, there will be no overhead flood lighting. There'll be minimal lighting that will probably uplight the understory of the trees. I'm sorry, I took the renderings down, but it'll just be some low pathway lighting and a light that washes down the face of the face plates of the niches. So none of that will be visible from outside of the columbarium. Lighting, noise. As far as the footprint of the columbarium, that's tied into the site plan, and that's already a condition. So it's already locked in based on the size and location per the site plan that was submitted. So that's not an issue. Was there anything else that I
think you covered all. We have amplifiers, overhead flooding.
Evergreen buffer.
Oh, evergreen buffer, and we'll plant whatever the city recommends that we plant in order to fill along the closest property line that runs along that edge, that we'll be happy to do whatever planting plan that we need to meet that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to turn this over to the board for motion and our discussion.
I have a quick question, Michael. Seem to be questioning a lot tonight. Just a quick question on 3. As the lady asked about the buffer, so we're just filling in the gaps along the western property line, but there is a gap. I don't have the site plan up. I'm sorry.
You don't need to apologize.
Can you do the rendering, Michael?
The rendering?
Yeah, the rendering, that one. See where this side is here? So we're not suggesting or requiring the applicant to put any kind of tree or buffer along the wall here? Yes.
Along the wall? No.
Yes.
No, we
Okay.
didn't, there's not a condition. The condition that we had with the filling in the evergreen spaces related to the green buffer on the other side of this road, I think it's best shown in these street view pictures. So this is one of the areas that's directly across from this proposed columbarium. As you can see, there's a bunch of trees in this area, but along the western property line, there are evergreen trees here. And there's a few areas where there's space. Maybe there was an evergreen planted there and it didn't make it, and it's been removed. So these are the gaps that we were talking about, and I think we had another picture. I think there was a gap here. Now, there's a gap here to someone's privacy fence, but it would be expected that the green buffer continue and all gaps be filled in.
So we would assume that you would approve something that would be similar size. I mean, you wouldn't put a 3-foot evergreen tree there, right?
So they would have to plant an evergreen tree of minimum size that we would typically require. I believe that's going to be probably about a 5 to 6 foot tall evergreen at planting.
Okay.
I can't speak for the city arborist on, the exact material, if he would want to utilize the same evergreen species that is existing in this area. But that's what it would be at planting.
Would he work with the neighbors that abut up to, I'm assuming that we would? Or is it just?
I mean, typically, once the approval is done with public hearing, the applicant or the city arborist would be working with the applicant to fill in those gaps. So the city arborist would go out to the location, probably with the applicant, so you'd go on site, and they would identify and agree to planting locations along this property line.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, on number 2, Michael, would that address the lighting concerns? Does that kind of ballpark everything together, number 2?
I mean, I don't really think that lighting was really addressed in any of the 3 conditions. It really wasn't identified in the applicant's application as to, other than what they verbally relayed to you this evening. So if you did have some concerns about the lighting, you certainly could add a condition that lighting be limited to, uplighting of trees or, soft lighting of pathways, things like that. You could certainly add something in there. Now, the city does have night sky ordinance. So we do have some regulations that would limit the type of lighting that they would have here, but if you'd like to add a condition, you could.
So the city ordinances would also come into play here.
Yeah, we do have a
Okay.
night sky ordinance, yes.
All right, any other questions for Michael? No other questions at this time. I'm going to turn this over to the board. Well, it's already with the board for motion and or discussion.
I mean, the question would be the consideration if we need a fourth condition regarding lighting, but that's why I'm asking opinion.
I think what I heard Michael say was that the city's night sky ordinance would cover this, so I think that would address it, but if we wanted to be specific, we could add a fourth condition in regards to uplighting, limited to tree uplighting and low pathway lighting.
If the city's ordinance is sufficient, it would be repetitive. And Michael, if you believe it's necessary to add anything to restrict the flood lighting, what is your recommendation to the board? Do you think the city's ordinance is sufficient?
I do think that the city's ordinance is sufficient in this regard. It's not going to allow for any kind of like flood lighting in that area. It's going to require that there be screens on any kind of lighting so that there's not light pollution onto other properties. But again, if it makes you feel more comfortable to add a condition, we can certainly do that. And I would just limit it to the lighting that was described by the applicant.
Before it's put into use, the city's going to come out, just like any other certificate of occupancy, is going to come out and check it out and say, yes, this meets our code, won't they?
Michael, if this wasn't the Calabarium, and there was a paved patio where they were going to have Friday night dinners, would we be here today looking?
We wouldn't.
The reason we're here is because it's a cemetery, quote, whatever, right? So if they chose to have, and I'll just be jokingly, fish fry Fridays, there would be no restriction on lighting or anything else. They could just do it.
Yeah, I mean, if someone were adding a porch onto their residential property, we're not getting a photometric plan to see, if there's exterior lighting on that. But with commercial development that requires approval by Design Review Board, we do require lighting plans with those plans, and they do have to provide us with a photometric plan showing that they're not going to have, they're going to have a low foot candle level at the property line, so light pollution's not.
You're not going to allow
overflowing.
stadium lighting either way.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I get that, and I understand their concern between dawn and dusk. However, if we try to pick hours of the day, I mean, I know that the church, I've lived here all my life pretty much, and I remember when it was built. They do have activities after 8 o'clock at night, and they have yet to put floodlights in.
Okay.
With that, I will go ahead and make a motion to approve. I got a mint in my mouth. CU-26-07, St. Thomas Aquinas Catholic Church. Help me pronounce that.
With staff
Second.
condition.
Thank you.
A motion has been made and properly seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carries, and will go before full council Monday week on July the 20th. I don't believe we have any other item well, we do have another item to consider, which is PH-26-04, UDC text amendments.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much.
Thank you again, Chairman and Commissioners. The final item this evening is our text amendments to the Unified Development Code to amend Articles 1 and 2 related to business and recreational vehicles parking in residentially zoned, residential zoning districts. Staff is recommending text amendments to assign definitions for business vehicle and recreational vehicle, as well as text amendments to amend the locational parking requirements for business and recreational vehicles in residential zoning districts. These text amendments are related to some recent code enforcement cases. In one case, a judge ruled against the city due to the lack of a definition for a business and recreational vehicle. So that covers the definition piece. And then in another case, a homeowner sought an administrative appeal from the Board of Zoning Appeals because a variance to the recreational vehicle parking regulations was not permitted due to that use being prohibited in the Unified Development Code. And so we're recommending amendments to the UDC to clarify that business and recreational vehicles may only be parked on a residential property when they are parked or stored in an area that is not visible from the street. Regulations are proposed allowing City Council to grant variances to the parking or storage of recreational vehicles when certain conditions are met, including support from neighbors and a determination that the variance would not cause a substantial detriment to the public. And so I have the definitions here. You see the first definition is the definition of business vehicle. And so we had business vehicle and recreational vehicle listed regulations in our code, but we never had definitions for those terms. So you see the definitions here. And then the changes to the locational criteria for parking. So again, these changes are to clarify that the business and recreational vehicles may only be parked on a residentially zoned property when they are not visible from the street. So that's the changes that you see here. And then we go on to make changes regarding recreational vehicles. We still require that business vehicles are prohibited. Parking of business vehicles is prohibited on residentially zoned properties, but it does not prohibit recreational vehicles. It does not allow them, but it provides a path that someone could seek a variance to allow a recreational vehicle to be parked on a property. Again, if there's support from neighbors and that they have a hardship and it wouldn't be a detriment to the public. So these are the changes that we're proposing this evening. If you have questions, I am happy to answer those.
Michael, can you give like a hypothetical case on how this is applied? Give me a hypothetical.
So basically, what the changes are clarifying the fact that if you had a business vehicle, so let's say that you work for Home Depot and you have a car that has, the commercial signage on the side of the vehicle and you drive that home every day. It's a business vehicle. So that needs to be parked in an area where it's not visible from the street. Same thing with a recreational vehicle, a camper, a boat, a jet ski. Those have to be parked in an area on that property where they're not visible from the street. And there's no variance. Currently, there's no variance. You cannot seek a variance to allow them to be parked on that property where they could potentially be seen from the street, but there could be some hardship on that property because right now the language in the code says that it is prohibited to park a business vehicle or a recreational vehicle on a property. These changes would now allow council to approve a variance to allow a recreational vehicle to be parked on a property. I'll go back to the example of the resident that was parking a recreational vehicle on his residential property, and he went to Board of Zoning Appeals basically to appeal the Community Development Director's decision because he couldn't seek a variance. It was a prohibited use, so he couldn't seek a variance. So he went through the motions of going to Board of Zoning Appeals, ended up the Board of Zoning Appeals sided with code enforcement, and he was not allowed to park his recreational vehicle on his property. His recreational vehicle in that case was a truck with a large trailer. He did, as a recreational hobby, he raced vehicles, and so the trailer allowed him to put his racing vehicle inside that trailer. So right, as of right now, he was cited, he went through a process to appeal our decision, and he cannot park that vehicle on the property. He does have a situation where he has a place to park the vehicle on the side of the house, where it is fairly screened from the street, so you really can't see it. It's tucked back in there. But our code currently doesn't provide him with a path to get a variance approved to allow that condition.
But what if your homeowners association prevents it?
Well, if the homeowners association prevents it, that supersedes our codes.
Okay, so this is somebody that did not live in an area
It
where
did-
it had
didn't
an
have,
HOA.
it wasn't established HOA.
The example that Michael was talking about, his neighbors actually came to the meeting also supporting it, saying, we can't see it, we don't have a problem with it, but the Board of Zoning Appeals said, we'll understand that, but it's just the way the code is written. So when you have examples where, people show up, the neighbors are fine, all adjacent neighbors, they said, because his driveway was so set back so far and there was trees on the front, they couldn't really see it. It was actually something that code enforcement found, and it wasn't something that was reported. So that's what we were looking at, ways to make it to where you could ask for that variance.
What are we defining as a business? And the reason I ask is Joe's Plumbing, and Joe lives in the house. And Joe has his truck wrapped with Joe's Plumbing on the side. However, what's the difference between that and a vehicle wrapped with Georgia Tech?
Those would both be business.
Georgia Tech is a business? Is that what we're going to categorize?
I mean, if you worked for Georgia Tech and you had.
No. My kid went to Georgia Tech and I paid $100,000 for him to go there. So I have a big sticker of Georgia Tech on the side of my truck.
Yeah. They would be two different things. One would
Why?
be considered a business vehicle and one would not, unfortunately.
I mean, we can't put in arbitrary things. So we're going to define a business as something that you raise money for?
I think the issue with signage, the tricky thing that we get into with signage is that we cannot regulate content of the signage. So in this particular case, we're regulating the use. The business vehicle is the use. So I think what you're talking about is you've got a business vehicle and then you have someone that just likes a college or athletic team or something like that.
I guess
it could have the same effect. I understand what you're saying. Yes.
But I'm trying to defend Joe here. Joe's Plumbing, and he lives in a nice neighborhood. He's got a nice truck, and he's got it wrapped with his company. And we're going to say, I'm sorry, if you have more than 2 cars that don't fit in the garage, yours can't be outside the garage.
I mean, that's what the current code says. We're cleaning up some language there, just to clarify that what the current code says, but that's what the current code.
No, I'm all for not having jet skis and, a big tractor that has, a John Deere on the back of it. I get that. But, I mean, we got to be careful of where we're taking this down to, because we've got people who are self-employed that live in this city, who are proud of their business, and that's their vehicle. They don't have another vehicle.
Understood.
I have another comment along those lines. I mean, how do we treat public safety vehicles? Alpharetta Police are allowed to take their police cars home, and
I mean, that would be considered a business vehicle.
so it would not be allowed to either sit on the street or sit in the
It
driveway.
would need to be parked in a garage or in a location on the property that wouldn't be visible from the street.
What about, based on the definition, there are home-based businesses or away from home businesses that provide vehicles to the employees, but they don't have any labeling on the side of the vehicle, but it's still a business vehicle. So somebody like that would be violating code without knowing that they are violating code.
So we wouldn't necessarily know in that particular case, but based on the definition of business vehicle that we've come up with says an automobile utilized for business or commercial activity, which is the case that you just mentioned, or bearing business or commercial signage. But it brings up a great point. I mean, if there is a business vehicle that is a vehicle that your business gives you to drive, but there's no commercial signage on it, you may not even know it's a business vehicle.
Maybe it should be business vehicle with a sign on it.
We could certainly look at that, and we can talk to the city attorney
Kathy,
about that.
Well, Michael, I mean, in all the years that you've been here, we've only had two issues.
I wouldn't say
so
that we've
we're
only had
making it-
two issues I just brought. Those were the two that had come up.
I know,
most
but,
recently.
I mean, seriously, has this been an issue?
But, I mean,
Well, we're getting hung up on definition. They're trying to add definitions and then add a path for an exception, because before there was no path, but we're getting we, as a board, are getting hung up on the definition of a business vehicle.
Yes.
to tell my age, the Mary Kay vehicles that were pink, they were clearly Mary Kay. And they were clearly a business vehicle, but we're going to toss them out of their driveway. Yes?
Yeah, I mean, that
Yes?
would be, if it's being used for business purposes.
Well, of course
it's
it
a
is.
business
It's
vehicle.
the only pink Cadillacs out there.
We can certainly, I think you're bringing up great points, and we can certainly go back and look at that definition for a business vehicle. I think there are great points that have been made this evening.
Michael, I think I'm missing something here, because is what is proposed, is that to clean this up so that it is allowed, like Mary or Bob's Plumbing can park in their driveway if there's, or they can't park in their driveway with Mary and Bob's plumbing truck?
So we're only providing a path for someone to get a variance for a recreational vehicle, not a business vehicle. So the possibility of asking council for a variance would be for the recreational vehicles, the campers, the boats, the jet skis, that kind of vehicle. It's not the business vehicles. The writing of the proposed text amendments here would still make it a prohibited use to park a business vehicle that is visible from the street. It would still need to be parked inside of a garage or some type of enclosure or somewhere on the property where it's not visible from the street.
So our Mary Kay person would have to tarp their vehicle.
That is potentially.
I'd rather have that than let Mary Kay park her pink Cadillac. I think I'm gonna go with letting Mary Kay have her pink Cadillac. But I get where you're going, and you know, if we're gonna enforce things like this, you know, we need to enforce people parking nose down on the wrong side of the road in neighborhoods. We don't. It's illegal, but they do it. I don't know. I understand what you're trying to do, and it's hard to, you know, Bob may have a really nice truck and just really nice wrapping, and then you could have, you know, something that's just awful. I get it.
Michael, one more time. Is it the way it is now, or is it being proposed? Mary or Bob work for XYZ Pest Control Company, and they get to bring their car home, and it says XYZ Pest Control on the side. Not wrap, but, you know, XYZ Pest Control here. Are they allowed or not allowed to park in their driveway if there's no room in the garage? So that, can they park that vehicle on the driveway? Is that yes or no now?
Now, before these changes, they could not park their vehicle on the driveway. With these changes, they could not park their car on the driveway, a business vehicle only. So we're not changing anything with regard to the business vehicle being prohibited. That's already in the code, and that would continue. The path for the variance is only for the recreational vehicle.
Okay, this may be a little silly, but you're telling them they can't park in the driveway, but they could park it on the side of the street, and it would be just fine.
I mean, if they were parking on the street, unless they were private streets that the HOA had control over and they had regulations,
I mean,
then,
but people
yeah,
park.
someone's parked on the street temporarily.
Or the clubhouse.
It
I mean, but
wouldn't
if
apply.
an HOA is not involved, and it's a residential area with no HOA, that restricts them from parking on the street, they could park on the street, but they can't park in their driveway.
If they were parked on the street and they were allowed to park on the street and it's a business vehicle, then this code doesn't apply to them. It's on the residentially zoned property.
One last time on this. So I've got a truck, but I put a camper on the back of it, not pulling it, but it's, you know, it fits down in so I can drive around. What we're trying to do is make it where I can now park my pickup truck with the camper part in my driveway? Is that what we're trying to do?
If you
here?
had that type of vehicle and your neighbors were supportive of your request to council to get a variance to allow you to park that on your driveway visible from the streets, then there would be a variance process available to you.
Well, let's consider the path forward for recreational vehicles, but I would ask staff to look at the parking and storage of business vehicle, the definition for business. When I read the revision on page 4 of 9, the parking or storage of any business vehicle used in connection with a home-based business is prohibited on any residential property. It means if you own a home business and you have a vehicle and has no sign on the side, you cannot park it there.
Correct.
If you can look at that,
Yes.
we can maybe prohibit with signs on the side where it's advertising, but if it's just a vehicle, people are violating the code without knowing they're violating the code right now. Because they have a home business or another business, they drive a company car, doesn't have any markings on it, but technically they are violating the code based on this statement.
No, you're absolutely correct.
Yeah.
If people, I mean, I drive my truck to work every day. Part of my job is to do speaking things that I actually get in my truck, so I would say it's a business vehicle.
Yeah. There is
We can certainly look at that.
Yeah, there is
I
a
think it all
defect.
goes back to that definition.
These are called a defect.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
do we defer this, or what's the appropriate way to handle this, Mr.
At the
Chairman?
moment, we are not changing anything regarding business vehicles. They are prohibited now. We're just clarifying, just cleaning up the text, but they still cannot park now. Now, I believe what staff is trying to do is to provide a path where recreational vehicles can be parked if the neighbors are supportive and they can get a variance. Is the variance the right word?
Yeah.
Yes.
Through council, so they're able to have a means where they can actually do it. That's all we are doing.
I don't really understand how you're going to get, I mean, with no HOA, what are you going to go around and get, a petition of 50 people to agree? I mean, how are you going to decide if you have one person say no and 10 people say yes? I mean, this doesn't make sense.
What if Joe doesn't have a garage?
By code, you're required to have a carport or garage for your required parking spaces. I'm sure that there are probably maybe some older structures out there that never had a garage and precede our code.
Well, would this include apartments and condominiums and things that don't necessarily or typically have a garage?
Yeah, it's parking on residentially zoned
So
property.
they won't have a garage or parking place in an apartment complex typically either.
If it's apartment complex with a surface parking lot, then yeah, that would be an issue. If it had structured parking, then that would be not visible from the street.
How critical is this in terms of passage?
I mean, if you would like us, I mean, if you would like to defer it, I don't think that there's like a major, timing on this. We can certainly defer it. We are also, if you want to move it forward to council, we can certainly do some quick work on the definition and some of the regulation before it gets to council. But I don't think we have any timing issues on it.
I
so
think
if
we
you'd
need
like
to
defer
vet it a little bit. I always hesitate to pound the ball to council. That's why they appointed us, to facilitate the public process and to make recommendations.
Okay.
There used to be a time when we would send things without a recommendation. We don't want to do that. We're not doing our jobs then. Because council has provided these means to facilitate the process. So I would rather vet it at this time, and we are not always perfect, so they can fix any imperfections, and even they are not perfect, and they'll be able to fix it later if they are what are called voids or defects in law. They can be cured one way or the other. So that I'm speaking where I am now. Maybe the board may want to defer to pass it forward. So. And think about the business vehicle and the definition. Just the whole package is probably better.
I would agree.
Certainly.
While we're figuring that out, what if they had license plates on, vanity plate on the front and the back? Joe's Plumber on the back on a Georgia tag. What are you going, is that a business vehicle? It's Joe. He's a plumber. And he's got his Joe Plumbing on the back on the
I don't
Georgia
think
tag.
that's the intent of what the code, but it definitely brings up a good point.
It's a
We'll
business
certainly
vehicle
look
that
at
has signage.
Yeah.
You got me rolling, Michael. I mean, I get where you want to be, and I don't disagree with
Yeah.
you. And matter of fact, I think it's really a good idea
Yeah.
in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I have to look at my position up here that we have to represent all the citizens in Alpharetta, not just what my preference would be.
I actually have
Understood.
a Roll Tide Alabama
There you
tags
go.
and the Georgia fence. Hit it.
I'm gonna take that tech thing off my truck.
Do I
also
need to
Jim.
make a motion to defer?
Yes, you can.
Okay, well, let me see here. I make a motion to defer PH-26-04 Unified Development Code Text Amendments, business and recreational vehicles.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded by DC. Any further discussions? Hearing none, please raise your right hand. Motion carries. And yes, and we can have fun here. It's not a serious business, so if you want to laugh, you're allowed to do that. John.